This is Gemara in Gittin Daf Pei Vav, and we're holding on the bottom of Pei Hey Amid Beis, approximately 7 lines from the bottom. First word on the line is Ibayi Lehu. We continue with the Machlokes Rav Yehuda and the Rabbanan in the Mishnah, in which we just explained at the end of yesterday's shir that we pinned this on the Machlokes Adi Yodayim Sheina Machichas Avi Yodayim, that Rav Yehuda required to be more explicit in the get. You had to write in Aramaic, etc. So asks the Gemara, Ibayilahu, Be'inan Videin, Oilai Be'inan Videin. Tachlis, end of story. Do you need this line of Videin or not? Says the Gemara, Tashima, I'll bring you a raya. Teitkin Rava Begittin. Rava was Misakin, Rava instituted the following text, should be written in a get. Eich. Pelanya bar Pelanya, that the get should say that they're giving eidos, that Pliny ben Pliny, so and so, Patar v'tarach yos Plancha, that so and so and so released and banished Patar v'sarech, so and so Insei his wife, Davas Insei min Kadam Dinam Yoima Dinan Ulalam, who was his wife prior to this, from this day and onward. So Rava introduces this whole lengthy text, but comments the Gemara, Vila Videin like Kamar. But he did not say the line of Videin. So clearly, what do we see? We see that Rava held that Lamaisa, we do not go like Rav Yehuda, and you do not have to say Videin. Says the Gemara, no raya. Ulataymech, according to your reasoning, you bring me a raya from the text of Rava. Kulu mi Kamar. Does this brisa list all the words of the get? Of course not. Ella bi'inan. Rather, you must say that, Kulu mika amar. The Rava Rashi explains, referring to all the other Lashonos languages that one is allowed to write the get in. Did the brisa list all of that? No. Ella, rather, what must you tell me? Bi'inan. Hachinami bi'inan. Must be that Rava does indeed. No, one second. We read this wrong. Let's do this one more time. Ulataymech, says the Gemara. Kulu mika amar. Did Rava mention everything else that must be included in the get, like the first way we read it? No. Ela binan. Rather, Rava must actually have to include everything else. He just didn't say it. So this line as well, the line of Rav Yehuda, as well, Rava included. He just did not say it. Continues the Gemara in the last line of Pei Amid Beis, delving a drop deeper into the text of Rava's get. Rava said, Miyama Dinan, from this day, says the Gemara, that line comes along, Lafuki mid Rav Yosi. That line comes to say that Rava does not go like Rav Yosi Damar. What does Rav Yosi say? Semanoi shal shtar meichiach olav. That the time in the shtar is meichiach, that is the date that the shtar is effective, from the fact that Rava had to speak out, not leave it blank and allow the date to show which date the shtar is written on, but rather Rava said you have to write Miyoma Dinan. He obviously holds, not like Rav Yosi, he does not hold Zman Shal Shtar Mechiach Alav. Continues the Gemara in the last word, Ulalam, and Rava said, and for always. Why do you have to say that as we turn on to Pei Vav Amid Aleph? Because that comes to exclude Midebai Minei Rava Mi Rav Nachman. From the Shaila that Rava asked Rav Nachman, that what? Lafuki Midebai Minei Rava Mi Rav Nachman Damar Hayoim Yat Ishi Ulamachar At Ishti. From the line which Rava asked Rav Nachman, clearly Rava is not passing like that it will not work if one says, today you're not my wife and tomorrow you are. Because Rav is explaining explicitly that it has to be Ula Olam and forever. Continues the Gemara quoting the Mishnah, 2 lines down, Pei Vav Amid Aleph, Kufa shall get shecher. What is the text of the get shecher? We says it's the following statement: Harei bas chayrin, harei alatzcha. You're a free person, or you are to yourself. Says the Gemara, Iskin Rav Yehuda bishtar zvini. Rav Yehuda was misakin. Rav Yehuda instituted in a shtar zvini, in a document of sale, the avdi of an eved, that you should write the following: Avda dinan mutzdak this Eved, Mutztak Lavdai, is fully an Eved, fully consigned to being an Eved, Upatar Va'ater Min Chayruri, and is fully separated from all freedoms, Umini Lule, and from all claims, Umini Rure Malko Malkisa, for any demands of the king or the queen, Urashom de Inash, Lois Alihoin, and there is no slavery from anyone else upon this Eved, only to ourselves. Umenuka Mikol Mum, and the Eved is clean, is free from any mum. Umin Shchein, and from Shchein Dinafak, Ad Titzar Chadas Va'atik. And he concludes with the line, and from any boil that might come from now until 2 years, whether it's Chadas, new, Va'atik, or old. Says the Gemara, that's the text in which Rav Yehuda put into every sale of an Eved. But the Gemara concludes by commenting, Mayas Vasei, what is the cure of this boils that we're discussing? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Ginbara Martacha, the Kavrita, ginger, a bit of silver and sulfur, the Natbik, one more time, Chavrisa, the Natbik Chivra, V'cholo de Chamra, Mishcha de Zeta, wine, vinegar, olive oil, white naphtha, V'shaifale, Begadfa, de Havza. And you take all these incredible ingredients, and what do you do with them? You smear the mixture on with a goose feather, and that's how you get rid of these boils, which are recurring boils on the body. And with that, we continue with the new Mishnah, Pevav and Aleph, and says the Mishnah, let's discuss different types of Gittin that Midaraisa are fine, but Midarabanan they have a problem. Says the Mishnah, Shleisha Gittin Psulin, there are 3 Gittin that are possible. Midarabanan, they are possible, as we'll see in a moment. How do we see that? Because it says in this case of Vlad kosher. But if you get remarried with such a get, the Vlad is kosher. That shows us that on the biblical Daraisa level, Min HaTorah must be a good get. Midrabanan, they said it's possible, and therefore one should not utilize such a get. But if one goes and gets remarried, the halacha is have a Vlad kosher, a child born from such a marriage would be a kosher child. What are these shleisha gittin? What are these 3 cases? Number 1, kasav b'chsav vein olav edim. Number 2, yesh olav edim but vein b'izman. Number 3, yesh b'izman vein b'yela eid echad. Hare'elu, these 3 cases are shleisha gittin psulin, are 3 cases of a get that is possible, but in this case of Vlad kosher. The Mishnah concludes that Rav Eliezer, Rav Elazar, Shail, and the Girsa argues, and he's a bit more makel. Rav Elazar Aimer Afal Pi Shein Olav Edim Ella Shenas Nu Lav if Needim, the famous Shita Rav Elazar that we've had so many times. Kosher Ede Misira Karti, and the Goyim and Achas Mishabadim. Not only is it kosher, you could collect from encumbered properties. Shein Edim Chais Min Alaget, a line we've seen many times. Elam Imnei. What is the reason the Edim are signing on the get? Elam Ibnei Tikkun Ha'ilam is only for the betterment of the world. These are 3 cases of Gittin Psulim, but Lemaisa, if utilized, the child from a subsequent marriage would be kosher. Says the Gemara, the classical kasha, anytime we have numbers. Visuleka, is there only 3 cases? Va'ika, but there's a 4th case, asks the Gemara. The classical case of a get yashan. The classical case, which we've seen about a week ago in Ayin Testament Beis, that a get yashan is a get that is aser midrabanan, because which is a case in which a husband and wife are together after the get has been given, but in a similar vein, in this case, and the child is born from such a union, halacha is havlad kosher. So asks the Gemara, why isn't that get a 4th get that should be listed in our Mishnah? Answers the Gemara, hasam loitetse. Over there, she doesn't even have to get divorced if she remarried with such a get. Whereas hacha, in our case, teitze, she has to get remarried. Meaning, it's true that in both cases the vlad is kosher. However, there's a fine nuance difference. Says the Gemara that hasam, in the case of a get yashan, she doesn't even have to get divorced if she remarries, whereas in our cases, only the Vlad would be kosher, but she would have to get divorced. Says the Gemara, but this point is debated. Then in our case, you have to get divorced. But according to the opinion that says you do not, Michael, what are you going to say? Answers the Gemara, I'll tell you a difference. That's why, another reason why this case of Get Yashan is not listed in our Mishnah. Over there, in the case of Get Yashan, the halacha is, once one is divorced with a Get Yashan, she's allowed to even go lechatchila and get remarried. Whereas in our case, you're only allowed to get remarried b'diavad, meaning if there was a marriage and there is a child, then the Vlad is kosher. Ask the Gemara, okay, so you explained to me the reason why Get Yashan is not included in our Mishnah. But ask the Gemara, well, you could get Keireach. What about literally a bald get? A get in which there's a get that is tied up. Well, we saw this also a little bit less than a week ago. And there are one or more folds that are blank, thereby coining it a bald get, which as well is a get that's possible midrabanan. So why is that listed in the Mishnah? Explains the Gemara, Hasam Havlan Mamzer, Havlan Kosher. Over there, if a child is born, not only is the get possible, but the child born is a mamzer. Over here, it's kosher. Says the Gemara, that's also debated. Explains the Gemara, Hasam Teitze, Hachaloi Teitze. Again, you don't have to get divorced. Over here, says the Gemara, you know the reason why we don't list the case of a get kireach in our Mishnah? So we're not talking about a bound get in the first place. So if we're not talking about a get that is bound up, and therefore there's no reason to mention the case of a get kireach. So two potential cases that our Mishnah could have listed, and the Gemara deflects the reason why neither is listed. We only have shloisha gittin psulim. Continues the Gemara to ask, Vayika Shalom Malchus, approximately 20 lines from the bottom of Peivav and Aleph. First word in line is Shalom. What about a case in which the get is possible with the Rabbanan because there's a Zman in the get which does not create peace with the kingdom? Why is in that case listed? And these are all cases we've had previously in the Masechta. Says the Gemara, Chacham Teitze, Achaloi Teitze. Over there you have to get divorced. You have to get divorced. Michael Meimar explains the Gemara, Hasam Avlan Mamzer, Havlan Kash. Says the Gemara, very good. Anichman Damar there, Meir. That says the Vlad's going to be a Mamzer over there. Rabbanim Michael Meimar explains the Gemara, Mukam like the Meir, that our Mishnah goes to Meir, and that's the reason why this case is not listed in our Mishnah. Hasam in that case Avlan Mamzer, whereas Hacha in our case Avlan Kasher, and that's the differentiation why this fourth case is not listed in our Mishnah, the case of Shalom Malchus. Continues the Gemara. Okay, so we'll try to explain 2-3 potential cases that should have been listed in our Mishnah, and the Gemara says no. Continues the Gemara. Okay, so now Tachlis, which cases are come to excluded in the first part of the Mishnah? What about the second part of the Mishnah? Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Excuse me, one more time. Says the Gemara, like we just said, what's your kasha? We just went all these 3 cases. That's exactly what it's coming to exclude. But what about the case in the Seifa when it repeats the same line again? Says the Gemara, it says the second time, the Harezu Shloisha Gittin Psulim. You know that's coming to exclude the Mutei Hadetanya. Maybe Gem Dinas Yam Nasnullah. He gives her the gats. Brings us all the way back to Daf Beis. Rather, Kate said, what do you do? And he says the second time, so the reason why our Mishnah repeated the line, the Mishnah is showing us the case of the Braisa is not included amongst the Gittin that are being discussed. The case of the Braisa, the child of the second marriage is indeed a mamzer. We continue 4 lines from the bottom, quoting the next case in the Mishnah, which is what? Now that we discussed the shleisha, the fact that there were specifically 3 cases in our Mishnah, now we could dive into the 3 cases. So the first of the 3 cases is what? That what the husband wrote to the get in his own handwriting, but there are no edim. Says the Gemara Marav, Ksav Yadai Shaninu. The Mishnah is discussing Ksav Yad of the husband's hands. Says the Gemara Hai. In which cases is a Rav commenting that we're talking about Ksav Yadai? Ilema Reishav, talking about the case we just quoted. Pshita, Ksav Yadai Gittin. It says Ksav Yadai, so of course it's going about Ksav Yadai's handwriting. Elam Siyasa. Rather, maybe you know what Rav meant. Maybe he meant the middle case that has no date. But says the Gemara, Hareish Lav Eidim. Such a case, it says explicitly that there are Eidim. So it can't be what Rav is referring to, that it's only in the husband's own handwriting. Ela Seifa. Rather, it must be talking about the third case. Yesh Baizman, Vein Bayela Eid Echad. Third case was that there is this man, but there's only one Eid. In that case, the Daf Ksav Yadai Ve'eid. That when did the Mishnah mean its din is not just one aid, it's when there's a Ksav Yad. It's written in the husband's own handwriting and there is one aid. But Ksav Soifer Ve'eid. But if you don't have the Maila that's written in the husband's handwriting, then Eloi, then such a child would not be kosher. That is how Rav learns the din of the Mishnah. It says the Gemara, but Shmuel disagrees on the second line of Peivav and Beis. Shmuel Amar, I feel Ksav Soifer Ve'eid. Even such a case with the Sefer wrote and there's one aid, the din is the same. Why? Shari Shanina, we've already learned Ksav Soifer Ve'eid, kosher. Therefore, the child will indeed be kosher. So, what does Rav hold? What does he do with this brisa that says? What does he do with the later Mishnah that says Ksav Sefer Ve'eid is kosher? V'ram midami hasam tinasel lechatchela hachadi havru Shmuel lekasha ha b'safra demovek ha b'safra deloi movek. According to Shmuel, there will be a fundamental difference between a sefer who is a muvak, is an expert, and one who is not. And similarly, says the Gemara, this is indeed the correct way of explaining as we see v'chein amar Rav Yochanan. That the similar explanation, Ksav Yadai Shaninu and Amar Rav Elazar, Harish Lav Eidim, Amar Leah Seifa. No, it's going in the Seifa. Zimna Marav Teitze, Zimna Marav Loi Teitze. Sometimes Rav said, Amar Leah Seifa. It's going in the Seifa, and that's the case in which we're discussing of Ksav Yad. So the way that Rav learned, Shmuel disagrees, but is explained similarly like Rav Yochanan. Continues the Gemara, another case of the Shleisha Gittin, another one of the Shleisha Gittin Psulim listed in the Mishnah. Zimnin Amar Rav, 3 lines from the white lines. There are times that Rav said Teitze, Zimnin Amar Rav Loi Teitze. With regard to these 3 cases, there are some times, and of course this harkens us back to the whole conversation on the bottom of Amud Aleph. There are some times that Rav says that indeed they have to get divorced for the second marriage, sometimes not. Ha Ketzad, what does that mean? Yesh Labanim, if they already have a child, then Loi Teitze, you don't have to get divorced, the child is kosher, and they're allowed to stay married, but if they don't have any children yet, then Teitze, they do have to indeed get divorced. Continues the Gemara, 1 second. So you're telling me if there already was a child, Rav says, okay, continue staying married? Meisvei, asked the Gemara in the last narrow line, Marzachabar Tovia. We learned in a Mishnah, Vekulan in all the cases, Shaya Bahen Safek Kedushin, I Safek Gerushin. Any case, a Gemara that we had in Yevamos, any case in which we're not sure if it's Kedushin or Gerushin, what's halacha? Harelu Chaltza is Veloy Misyabmois. You have to Chalitza and not Yibam. Ketzad Safek Kedushin. What is such a scenario? Says the Gemara, Zarak Lo Kedushin Safekar Lo Safekar of Lo. We don't know who it's closer to. Zeu Safek Kedushin. What is Safek Gerushin? Kasam Ksav Yadavein Olav Eidim Yish Lav Eidim Ein B'Zman Yish B'Zman Vein B'Y Elo Eid Echad. Any of the 3 cases of our Mishnah. Harei Zeh Safek Gerushin. These are all cases of Safek Gerushin. So now we know that our Mishnah is the quintessential label of Safek Gerushin. And what do we just learn? We just learned that in case of Safek Kedusha, Safek Gerushin, do Chalitza and not Yibun. If you're going to tell me Lo Teitzei, so if you're going to tell me that if you got married based on one of these three Gittin, you're allowed to stay married. Sarasa Asya Labumei. Then in those cases, the Sarah might come to a situation of Yibum. Because if they're allowed to stay married, so we assume that it's a regular marriage, and then it could potentially fall into case of Yibum. But we just said a moment ago that it's only Shayach Chalitza and not Yibum in this case. Says the Gemara, no. That doesn't scare us. Chashasha d'Rabbanan he. Because it's all Chash the din d'Rabbanan, so let there be Yibum, and there's not a problem in this case. Continues the Gemara 6 lines down. First word on line is Liabume. Levi Amar, Levi says, the Gemara, Levi says, Loilam Loi Teitze. Says Levi, no, really, she does not have to leave her second husband, even if there was no children. Similarly, Rav Yochanan says, Loilam Loi Teitze. You don't have to get divorced. Your father used to teach us, Loilam Loi Teitze, you don't have to get divorced, regardless whether there are children or not. The kartzis shebe amir, and another din, the kartzis that's found in the amir and the omer and the sheaves, einay paisels and mechatas, a different din. They do not pass up with the mechatas. Says the Gemara on this random last line, Mari kartzis. What are you talking about? One of the world's the kartzis. Amar Abaya, you know what it is? The davta de beinei kipi. A kartzis is a large fly that is found amongst the sheaves, and we're learning over random din over here that such a fly does not passel with the mechatos. Ask the Gemara, Masar Rav Daniel Barav Ketina, on this last din, Kol ha'ifah is paisla mechatos. The halacha is all birds, if they drink from the mechatos, they drink from the chatos water, they passel water chutz, except for one bird. Minayoina, why? Because the way that a yoina drinks is differently. Because it sucks up the water and there's no backwash. The backwash is the problem, because then the water is considered used. But if they have a perfect one way that it sucks up the water without letting anything back, there's no problem. But I asked the Gemara 1 second, V'misa, based on what we just said, Nisti, we shall list chutz mi yoina. It should list except for the yoina v'kartzis, also like kartzis, because it seemingly also doesn't pass up the water. Says the Gemara, you know I didn't list it. Loib sikale, it's not such a clear cut. Then why not? The gedayla loib pasla, ketana pasla depends on the size of the kartzis. That's why it is not listed. We're running late just to wrap up and get to the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, quoting the end of the Mishnah, which was Shitas Rav Eliezer. The Rav Eliezer disagreed on our Mishnah. And Rav Eliezer says, but if it's given b'fnei edim, it's going to be kosher, and it can even be given in chas v'shabbat. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Alachik Rav Elazar Begittin, that's what we paskin. Kamri the Shmuel Amar, not only Begittin, but af b'shtaras we pass like Rav Elazar Edim Esira Karti. Rav Savar b'shtaras loy. Rav Yehuda Amar Rav said Dafkan Gittin. Why? Because he disagreed, and he said b'shtaras we do not paskin like Rav Eliezer. Hakatani, says the Gemara, the government of chas v'shabbatim. What do you mean? The Mishnah said they able to collect from the chasim mishubadim. So clearly there are financial and monetary ramifications to the din of the Mishnah as well. So it should be the same din by shtaros. Why are you only telling me it's by Gittin? Rav Elazar says the Gemara, Tarti Amar. Rav Elazar said 2 different dinim. One din, the Eidim Asira Karti. And a second din, they can even be gaiva with it. The Rav, who quoted Rav Elazar, said, Rav Elazar be Gittin and not b'shtaros, was why Savar Kavsei B'chado, Poligale B'chado, only held like Rav Elazar in one of these cases. V'chein, and similarly, as we conclude, Rav Yaakov Idi, Rav Yeshua ben Levi, halacha Rav Elazar be Gittin. Rav Yanai Amar, afilu reachan get ein ba. Not only do you pass like Rav Elazar, Rav Yanai says, there's not even a reach ha get in these scenarios. Says the Gemara, what's going on? Rav Yani, Leslie, Rav Elazar doesn't know the Veidim Mesir Karti. Explains the Gemara, Hachi Kamer. This is what Rav Yani meant. Lirabbanon, not according to Rav Eliezer. According to Rav Eliezer, it's a good get. That's the whole point. L'Rabbanan afilu recha get. Ein ba v'chenim Rav Yisrael Chanina Amar Reish Lakish Halachik Rav Elazar beGittin. Rav Yochanan Amar afilu recha get ein ba. Lema Rav Yochanan unless they are the same kasha. Hachi kamar l'Rabbanan afilu recha get ein ba. Shalach le Rav Abba bar Zavda lemari bar mar. Boy mi name Rav Huna asked Rav Huna Halachik Rav Elazar beGittin. Ein lacha asked his kasha. Hachi navna shed Rav Huna Amar le Rava brei. Hachi Amar Abba Mishmei is what your father used to say. The Rava halacha Rav Elazar beGittin. Rabbi Yiseinu Abakian b'dvar halacha mishum Rabbeinu Amru as well. Halacha Rav Elazar beGittin. Why? Dem Rav Cham bar Guri Amar Rav halacha Rav Elazar beGittin. That's one lashon. Iga di Amri Chavreinu Habakim, our friends b'dvar halacha v'talmid Rabbeinu mishum Rabbeinu Amru is the name of Rabbeinu. Halacha Rav Elazar beGittin. A shayla of who says what? Dam Rav Chisda Amar Rav Cham bar Guri Amar Rav halacha Rav Elazar beGittin v'chein. Ama v'chein asar Avin Amar Rav Elazar Amar Rav halacha Rav Elazar beGittin. So it's quite a conclusive point that we're paskening like Rav Elazar beGittin. The shayla just says how far does it go? Is it even b'shtaris or not? We'll pick it up from the Mishnah B'siyata D'Shmaya in the next shiur.